Alright, welcome everybody to another mixing video. Today we're going to be continuing on the series of stock plugins versus Waves plugins versus Slate Digital plugins. So the last two videos were mix bus plugins or mix bus processing, however you wish to say it. And it was kind of mind-blowing how different the workflow was with the Waves plugins versus the stock plugins. And like I said before, it's mostly because I'm more familiar with the Waves plugins now. I used to use the stock plugins a lot, but I haven't used them in quite a while, so to achieve the sound that I want takes a little bit more time. But the plugins that I'm most familiar with are the Slate Digital plugins. I mean, by far. I use the Slate Digital plugins on every mix. Slate Digital plugins are my absolute favorite, and I absolutely wish to own every single plugin that he ever comes out with ever. So let's get started. Let's listen to this track, and I'll apply the mix bus chain, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Finally alone, with a peace of mind that I've been searching for, and all I seem to hear is the sound of your laughter. And if you believe that I don't think about you, you should know it's hard to be so far without you. And when you hold my hand, it doesn't matter how far I may be. You know I'm home. I was there like the stars. The present always lives in your heart, so let's enjoy our time. I'ma lean on you, you lean on me, so good when we're together. Now you should know I won't lose my way. Your love always saves me. Your love always saves me. Wherever I go, wherever I lay, now you should know I won't lose my way. Your love always saves me. Your
Okay, so this is, let me just start by saying that this is my favorite chain right here. And this is what I almost always do on every single mix. And the reason I love it so much is just that it's so easy with this virtual mix rack to just swap something out and try a different thing. And I could have even done an A-B of the different chains, but this song has a little bit more character, and I feel like the FGS and FGN have a lot more color than the custom EQ. Custom EQ is wonderful and one of my favorite EQs, but it was just a little bit too clean for me for this kind of track. I loved how it cleaned things up and the EQ that it actually did, but I wanted some of that analog flavor from the FGS and FGN, especially the FGN. So let's talk a little bit about this chain here. So I also used an SSL emulation for the console emulation, and I wanted to make sure that that was getting in the red in there sometimes, because this console, when you start to push it into that red, it really becomes kind of sweet. I really like the harmonic coloration that it gives. And then, as before, I used the same EQ, which is also kind of why I went to this SSL EQ, just to make it a little bit more comparable to the other two videos of the mix bus. So a high pass at 21, a little boost here at 60, cutting a little bit of the muddiness out at 500, cutting some of the nasaliness out at 400 or 4K, excuse me, and then at 7.5 I did a little shelf there, then another little shelf at 12K. Then here on the mix bus compressor, I was aiming for, on average, around 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction, which I got. Except in the loud parts, it was getting quite a bit more. That vocal was really, really hitting it hard. But that'll be a little bit more controlled once I add some compression to the vocal itself, because it won't be as dynamic. Then I added some of this drive just because I love the color that this FG red gives. And then the FG mu is just here just to give some of that tube saturation This is a really great compressor also, but even if you just run your audio through it, it really, really makes it sound nice. And I had to dial down the makeup gain because I was getting a little bit too much volume there. And then finally, I ran it into the virtual tape machine, which is, if you've watched any of my videos, you know that this is one of my favorite plugins, and I can't really live without this anymore. It really just adds warmth, some body. It helps control that top end, and it also just images everything nice and just gives it a character that I haven't seen in any other plugin. And then, as with the other two videos, I added the UAD EMT 140 plate across the entire mix, very subtly in there, very, very subtly put in there. So, as you can see, this was another very quick mix bus setup. The longest part was me experimenting with the two EQs as well as trying to get the right amount of compression. Other than that, everything else was just throw it on there and it sounds nice, basically. These Slate Digital plugins are mind-blowing, and I absolutely love his stuff. And it's just, oh, how to describe it? He pushes the envelope. It's not only are these plugins very, very affordable, because I actually bought these plugins. I don't subscribe to the everything bundle, which I'm considering doing once I find out what is going on with my work situation. But they're in a class of their own. I mean, these definitely compare with the UAD plugins and the Waves plugins. And anybody who thinks that Slate Digital, because of the price, isn't going to be as good as those, well, think again and try these plugins for yourself because they're incredible. And it just makes it so easy to dial in the sound that you want. And everything is just so flexible, especially the virtual mix rack. I could do an entire mix with just the VMR and the modules that I have for it. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something new. I hope that you go and check out the Slate Digital plugins because they're great. So if you did like this, please give this video a like. If you didn't, you can give it a dislike. That's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. If you really like this, please subscribe. I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. Please go and check out the other two videos of the stock plugins on the same mix, as well as the Waves plugins, so you can compare and hear the difference of sound. At the very end of this series, I'm going to print all three mixes and then ABC, I guess, the different mixes, so you can hear the difference in tonality and harmonics and noise as well. I was actually surprised that the Slate Digital and Waves mixes have less noise than my stock plugins. I was not expecting that. I was expecting the opposite. But once again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you so very much. Have a great day.